But all of these incentives that kept production going, if we did not reinvest in sugar, thousands of workers will be home without an income. And I'm not talking about the indirect tens of thousands who benefit from the sugar industry. So, cost of living has benefited from policies that directly target it. Just imagine if we did not have these policies. But there are certain things that we import, and our consumption pattern has changed tremendously. If we go around this table, and I ask every single person here, how much mangoes you ate versus how many apples you ate during the holiday. And I'm sure most people would eat more apples than mangoes. And we're dumping mangoes now because the season has massive production. If we ask how many persons ate fish versus beef and steak, how many persons? So I'm saying the consumption pattern is changing. And I've had discussions with vendors in the market and people in the market. And you all know this. As economies grow, spending pattern change, consumption pattern change. So we took a basket of goods. And I think, Kiana, I spoke to you about this. And we shopped the basket of goods at Puerto Rico Market, at Border Market, Port Morant Market, and in the supermarkets. I'm not going to name the supermarkets. And the price differential was enormous. Was enormous. In every basket of goods. If you take a low-income family 4 years ago and look at that family basket of goods 4 years ago and basket of goods today, you will see changes in that basket. You will see changes in that basket of goods. So if you're importing some inflation and people are filling their basket from that imported goods with that inflation, there's very little you can do about that. We produce crude oil, but we import refined fuel. That is why we are looking at a model now that will safeguard us from major shocks in refined products. So the issue of cost of living is not only what I explained earlier, what the government does, is how you address this in a structural way, in consumption pattern, in creating higher value of goods from your local production, where your factors of production and your cost of production is more controlled. So for example, if we are able to packet all of our cashew nuts to replace the imported cashew nuts, we can then give incentives to our farmers in transportation that will reduce the cost of one package of cashew nuts. Then if you look at our eating pattern, same consumption. All of us know today that more people are eating out today than 3 years ago. Am I not right? If all of us are to be honest. In my own home on Boxing Day, took my time to cook all the curry, the dal and rice, the baked chicken. And then at 6:30, my son said to me, Daddy, I want KFC. And I'm sure this is a story of lots of families. You wake up with balance choker and roti, but by the time you get to the balance choker and roti, you got 8 egg balls on the counter. So we have to understand the nature of the economy. More people are eating out today than 3 years ago. And there is nothing wrong with that. Because we have to be aspirational. But we cannot look at the issue of cost of living in isolation of all of these structural issues. If you used to walk to go to the church, you know, in Lenora, I used to know on Fridays, you see everybody walking to mosque. On Sundays, everybody walking to the temple. It's one village, Lenora. Everybody walking to the church. Today, everybody driving. Consumption pattern. Why is it we have an entire series completed in less than 3 months, when it used to take 10 years? Consumption pattern. All of that is linked to cost of living because sometimes you don't take into consideration. You go to Porica Market now. You go with your car, right, Fariza? You go into the parking lot. How much you pay? $500? $500 to park. That was never in your cost structure going to the market. It is now in your cost structure going to the market. Nothing is wrong with it. But it is for us to understand the nature and structure of the economy as a result of the growth and development that is taking place in our country. I hope I was able to shed some light.
Vishani.
Mr. President, I want to turn your attention to 2 specific areas. The first would be, what can you tell us about your plans or initiatives for the year 2026 or 60th Independence Anniversary, specifically for persons in the creative and cultural sector? And secondly, Mr. President, we have to talk about power generation. A year ago, you told us, this group, that you would engage management, that heads will roll at GPL if challenges persist. What conversations did you have with them, particularly over the last few weeks?
So, Vishani, you're always on target with your question, as all of you. I can't sit here and say that I have not recognized the improvement also in GPL. It is not where we want it to be as yet. We have brought in technical expertise. But why it is not there? It is not there because the entire transmission network has to be redone. And we are doing that right now. That's an investment maybe of close to $600 million US. We have to remember there was no maintenance on this system. We're doing it at the same time, whilst the growth in consumption and demand is moving at an exponential pace. So you have a transmission issue, we have a production issue, and yes, we had a delay on the gas assurance. We acknowledge this. Is it where we want it to be? No. But today we have a plan. We have a plan to address production. We have a plan to address transmission. We have a plan to address distribution. The tens of thousands of new homes that are coming on every 2-3 years to the grid on the same system. We now have to move at a rapid pace to have the cable across the Demerara River completed. Because it's not only affecting the power in sector now, it's affecting our ability to bring ship in, driving up the costs. So we are hoping that that project can get on the way very, very quickly. So on the power side, there has been improvement, still not where we want it to be. There is still weaknesses in the management that we are addressing. There are challenges from the distribution side. There are challenges from the production side. We're hoping by the last quarter in 2026, the gas to energy project will be in a position to deliver. But that too is a problem if the transmission and distribution is not completed. We're rebuilding control centers and towers all across the country. So we are fixing and reinvesting in the entire infrastructure in energy, whilst we have to keep the power on. We also have more trucks and cars on the roads. We had a number of accidents that took down major poles. And we also have lapses in our maintenance system. So I can say with great clarity that there is a massive investment, infrastructure, human development, capacity building, institutional changes that will come on stream, that is on stream, not will come on stream, to give us a safe, efficient, and highly reliable network. So that was your first question. The second one was?
The 60th anniversary celebration.
Yes, beautiful. Well, let me first, because you touched on the orange economy. We're going to invest heavily in the orange economy. And our 60th anniversary gives us an enormous opportunity to kickstart that investment. On this 60th anniversary, I want it to be known as the era in which our orange economy, which include our culture, our ecosystem, our food, our people, our artists, our artistic skills, is deployed at a scale and magnitude never seen anywhere in this region before. We're going to invest heavily in creating a film industry here, to create entertainment hubs in which our local artists can have structured form of income, working to expand our tourism product, but importantly, trying to get major cruise lines to come to Guyana. That is why we have to develop and continue to develop this avenue. We'll be developing the entire seawall. We'll be creating a green ecosystem and walking trail across Georgetown. And of course, for those day tourists, we will have the Essequibo Island tours and the tours to Kaichor. But you will see aggressive investment. And I've already asked the private sector to direct all their social expenditure as much as possible towards the orange economy this year. Our 60th anniversary will be a grand homecoming. It's an event-packed year in which we want to have all our Guyanese brothers and sisters coming back home to visit, to spend time, but that has to be driven by events. So the military has a series of events planned, culture, tourism, and our RTs themselves are working with us. So everything that is national in nature would have our 60th anniversary as part of it. Before the end of the first quarter, walking down this entire Lamaha Street would have the amazing history of Guyana pre-independence. So you'll be walking through the history of Guyana pre-independence. The entire structure from an environmental perspective of Georgetown will change next year. And we have to admit, because I deliberately drove around, it was much, much cleaner this year, even after Christmas Eve. I went with many members of the private sector, and I was pleasantly surprised. We also want to create ownership with parapets, drains, and the environment that is in front of the private sector. So I want our 60th anniversary to be remembered as that moment in history when mindset met transformation. Transformation met people. People met technology. Technology created system for a new Guyana that would be one that boasts of efficiency, transparency, accountability, and one in which every Guyanese must aspire to own things. Own things the right way. I encourage every Guyanese to take your loans, invest. I want to see every Guyanese becoming better off than they are today. Own new, more beautiful houses, buildings. Once you do it the right way, let us pay our taxes. Build a strong, beautiful economy that all of us must be proud of. So, the 60th anniversary also would unleash the next 100 years of generational projects for Guyana, because we will have the full ecosystem for whales, the new airport at Rosal and Lethem, upgrade work commencing on all the hinterland airstrips. We will have gas to energy 2 in Berbice, creating the new wave of generational wealth and revenue stream, whether it's fertilizer plant, glass factory, data centers, energy powerhouse, the LNG, all of that, creating an infrastructure and logistics hub that will drive opportunities. We don't want everybody to own a sand truck. We want to get these families, you guys, the women, come together. Let's sit with you and tell you what type of trucks will be needed to move the gas to Roraima. So you guys can invest in those trucks and you can own the transport and logistics arms of the business. That is what we want. That is the type of wealth creation. Incentivizing the entire system geared towards wealth creation. Not in a shy way, in a bold, innovative way.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. Since you have returned to office, you have placed much more stronger emphasis on accountability, and accountability when it comes to your government ministers and public officials and measuring their performance. You also spoke earlier about taking a business-like approach to governance. What drove this shift in management, basically, and what measures are in place to ensure that these standards are actually enforced?
Well, what drove that is knowing that in term limit you have a finite time to make the type of impact. And being part of a team that want to see not just Guyana do well, but that Guyana lead the world. And this is, I'm not taking this lightly. We will. There's no other choice. And we are building accountability within the system itself. The Ministry of Governance, Government Efficiency and Implementation. Let's take 114 days. We started Service Center in Lenora. I don't know, Freeze, if you had an opportunity. But Shani, I don't know if you two went and checked. What used to take people 3 weeks is done in 10 minutes now. Work permits, visas, everything electronically done. And if in 10 days the application is not processed, the system will tell us not only how many are outstanding, but who are the officers that are lagging behind. And we're speaking publicly about this. The electronic ticketing system, 48,000 plus tickets. Almost 50% payment rate. You're seeing it. Citizens are feeling it. Digitizing. In 7 months, 8 months, all the NIS records digitized. What take you a month to search for, you can search in 5 seconds. And everybody have access now. Look at the license. Early in January, you will see a lot of people being sent home. We have just completed examining the records of all the licenses issued at GRA versus how many persons pass the theoretical test and how many pass the practical test. And I can tell you, the results is alarming. Because you can't go on to the practical if you don't pass the theory. But guess how we were able to achieve that? Because the exams is now digitized. So you write the exam electronically, and the results is done electronically. It's reducing that human bias. In a couple of months, we'll have new scanners at the airport. Look at the improvement in the airport, in processing at the airport. Where are we going to give you, like Singapore, self-declare? Everything goes through the scanner. If you falsify the declaration, we have to move the first instance fine to $200,000, 1,000 US. And then jail term if the same person do the second or third time. Those are some of the things that we're thinking about. Building the system. We must never have the type of situation that robbed this country of hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue. So we're building everything on systems driven by technology, on a digital backbone to improve efficiency, enhance accountability, and improve transparency. But it's not only for government, it's also for the private sector. Everything in mining will be integrated in the system. We're incentivizing the opening up of new accounts. We want every citizen to have an account. Going to the school system. encourage our school children to open accounts. All of this is what brings discipline to the society. That is why I spoke about cultural shift, mindset. Deploying cameras at a national scale. The cameras are doing an enormous job for us in solving crime. All-time low. Let's talk about that a bit, crime and security. Because we have had massive improvement. And that is because of the technology. We are now going back, working with our international partners on what we term cold cases. Deploying international support with technology. Our men and women in uniform are able now to use this technology. Eyes in the sky, 24 hours deployed. Our clear-up rate is the best in the region. So we have concerns also, because the judiciary must be predictable. You can't have an Amerindian man with a shotgun sent to prison for 2 years with an illegal firearm, and you have a man with semi-automatic weapon, high-caliber weapon, given bail. We have to talk about these things. The inconsistency does not do well for the system. And I know the Chancellor and the Chief Justice are working to ensure that these inconsistencies and the Judicial Service Commission must be eradicated from our system. So it's system-based, technology-backed, and human developed.
Still on crime and security, Mr. President, but just a little shift of the focus on that. We have seen that the U.S. is taking on the fight against narco trafficking, and there's a buildup of the security forces in the Caribbean Sea. This has resulted in what I would say a fallout or a disagreement among some CARICOM leaders. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago says CARICOM is no longer a reliant partner this time, and that the organization is deteriorating. What are your views, and where does Guyana stand?
We are a proud member of CARICOM. CARICOM headquarters is located in Guyana. Multilateralism is an important part of our diplomacy. Regionalism is an important part of our diplomacy in Guyana. And I think it's unfair to say that, and I will not speak for my colleagues, but let me say this. Collectively, I went to many CARICOM meetings where we expressed concerns about drug trafficking, gold smuggling, and other form of illicit activity within our region, utilizing our maritime space and our airspace. There is no doubt that the entire CARICOM spoke up against this, including gun smuggling. We all ask for action to be taken. This brings me to my personal position. I support completely every action taken to eradicate drug trafficking, terrorism, gold smuggling within this region. It undermines democracy, it undermines freedom, it supports corruption, it destroys societies. What about the tens of thousands of persons who lost their lives, families displaced and damaged because of these people, these criminals who operate. So the U.S. have a solid partner in Guyana in the fight against those forms of criminality.
President Kiana.
Mr. President, I want to shift the focus now on gas. And you have laid out a very transformative agenda, particularly as it relates to. I'll start over. Mr. President, I want to shift the attention to gas development. And in the past few months, you have laid out a transformative agenda on what gas development is going to look like, and you've made it clear it has to happen in your second term. I want to know, in addition to the plans that you have for creating opportunities for co-investment and for rolling out a number of initiatives through gas, what are some of the risks that you are monitoring to ensure that we are a success with gas development?
That's a loaded question, Kiana, because you know where the risks are. But I'm happy you asked it. It's easy for persons to sit down there and believe that there is no volatility. We know that the world is undergoing different challenges. When you look at Venezuela production out of the system, Russia and Ukraine, basically not optimal in the system, and the Middle East, should all of those conflicts resolve itself, and you have an exponential growth in production in the system, economic model tells you that demand and supply affect price. That's why your question is so important. And that is why when people jump around and say, let's transfer so much money to the population and to every person, they don't understand the volatility that exists. That is why in our economic frame and modeling, it's not guesswork. Everything we have announced has been carefully designed against the median, the upside and downside of the oil and gas market. Because it can shift or tumble your entire revenue stream overnight. And if you build a model where your recurrent expenditure is based on a futuristic price that is not viable, then your entire economy will tank. Because then you'll have to start taking money out of your fund or borrow to sustain current expenditure. Not expenditure that is invested to create new wealth, current expenditure. That is why we have to be very careful in our modeling. And we are taking these things into consideration in our modeling. The second thing is understanding where the world is going. If you look at the Middle East, you will see the focus now is on leveraging their petroleum potential for energy and energy-related investments. That is why in Saudi Arabia, it's about the hyperscale data centers that will power the next generation of jobs. It's about investment in technology and AI. It's about converting their petroleum into petroleum-based products for home construction, for drainage, steel production. It's investment in innovation, research, and development. Because it's not the raw product. It's converting a lot of that excess demand into new forms of production, into energy that drives new industries and new form of wealth creation. And we have to be in that model. We have to be part of that model. Otherwise, we would find ourselves oil and gas rich, but not rich from an economic standpoint long into the future. That is why sustainable, resilient investments, key in the model that we are building. That is why the incentives are geared towards making Guyana a powerhouse in food production, a powerhouse in environmental services, a powerhouse in climate services, an industrial hub for the Caribbean and Latin America, an agro-processing hub for the Caribbean and Latin America, a powerhouse in ecotourism, a powerhouse orange economy. It is using this phase to power this generational wealth opportunity and to expand the pillars of the economy at a rapid pace. Because from a structural perspective, you're seeing these changes coming at you. We have to understand things are normalizing. Yes, you see all these conflicts raging, but there is a deliberate effort led by the US administration to normalize things. And with normalization comes, but I want these challenges, but I want to assure you that our modeling takes this into consideration. You want us to engage these kids a bit and then come back?
I'd like to mix things up a little bit.
Yes.
I know some of the students have some questions for you, so we're going to take the first 5 in the first row. We'll start with the young lady.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. First of all, I'd like to thank you and your team for the opportunity so I could speak here with you this afternoon. And you spoke earlier about digitization. Sorry. You spoke earlier about digitization and improving technology usage in Guyana, which brings me to my question. What is Guyana's plan going into 2026 to making sure that we keep up with the technological and AI advancements so that we are not surrendering to globalization?
That's a beautiful question. And it's a question where we have to address the reality. The reality of Guyana yesterday, not today, is that we were at a, I would say, 30, 40-year gap in terms of where we were from a technological perspective to where the rest of the world is today. And you'll recall that during the period of the Industrial Revolution, countries were left back by 100 years. Countries are still left back. We cannot afford that. That is why we have taken a deliberate step to adopt tomorrow's technology today, so that we are leapfrogging into the future. And we are reducing that transition time from 30 years to the next 5 years. So part of the investment that we are making is to position our systems to be in line with the rest of the world and ahead in some instances within the next 5 years. Structurally, if we were going on a straight line, this would have taken us 30 years. But we have taken a deliberate decision that we are adopting all of the best technology tomorrow, today. So for example, we have moved from safe city to safe country. Very few countries have an entire country plan for a safe city where are the cameras. Before the end of next year, You will go to a kiosk and renew your driver's license. Most government services you'll access from your bed. Ask Government Portal will give you direct interaction 24/7 with all of government. These are things that even the developed world have not perfected as yet. It will not be perfect. There will be glitches. But this 5 years is to perfect the imperfection, to make us part of the real-time, real world. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next question.
And you, the young people, you have the greatest, you're the greatest asset in this, because you are coming up in that environment. My son at 6 can teach me on the iPad every single day something new. But you are coming up in that environment, so that we want you to be real time in your knowledge. If you learn in a digital environment, that's why we want everybody on the digital school. You will learn to be digitally savvy in everything you do. Right? Please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good
It is a pleasure meeting with you here today. Now, my name is Raka London. I'm from Queens College. And on the same topic of development and the youth, my question is focused on the education sector. So can you outline specific investments, concrete measures and policies, whether they are financial investments, infrastructure development, teacher recruitment, a more refined syllabus, whatever the case may be, that would up the level of education in the hinterland sector moving forward?
That's a beautiful question. So first of all, and you're specific on the hinterland. So let me say, let's start from 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you had limited access to data in the hinterland. Today, almost every hinterland school is connected on the learning channel or connected on a digital platform, so that every single school in the hinterland can be now part of the digital revolution in the Guyana Digital School. For the first time, well, let me back up. We're now investing to have universal secondary education in the hinterland. So we started from the hinterland having absolutely limited access to primary education, no access to secondary education, to 100% access to primary now, almost 100% access to secondary. But in the secondary, they had limited scope because they did not have science labs. Today, we're investing in world-class labs in the secondary schools. We're investing in practical instruction centers in the hinterland. We're investing in technical centers in the hinterland. We're also addressing the nutritional aspect that aid education development. So we have the school feeding program in the hinterland kitchens. We have expanded scholarship now to the hinterland. Today we have more students from the hinterland on our Gold Scholarship program. Almost every single teacher in the hinterland now is either trained or in the training program. So we'll have 100% trained teachers in the hinterland. We have more students in our nursing program in the country now from the hinterland than any other region. We have more persons in our patient care from the hinterland than any other region. And I have this for you. The highest recruitment in the police academy came from Region 1. So in every area of national development and skills development, the most numbers are coming out of the hinterland. Why? Because for the first time, hinterland students have the opportunity to write CXC and to have the basic requirements to enter these programs. And we're seeing record numbers entering these programs. So the results are already there. We're investing in roads, hinterland roads. We're investing in hinterland transportation. We're giving more students scholarship to come out to the top tier schools in the country. So our investment is multifaceted. At the same time, we are building better teachers' accommodation. We are we are giving more allowances for teachers serving in the hinterland. We're continuously increasing the salaries for our teachers. We're giving them opportunity to earn their degrees so that their salary scale improve, because they're now trained teachers, then trained graduate teachers. So all of this is being done to help our hinterland. I hope I was helpful. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Princess Stephen from St. Joseph High, and you regarded us as the future earlier when you came. And for us as young people, it is so important for us to learn to lead from now so that we're able to become responsible and to take accountability. So my question to you, Mr. President, is how does the government plan to implement leadership opportunities for us as students so that we are prepared to become active citizens and great leaders, not just for in the future, but from now?
That's a beautiful question. And remember earlier I spoke about creating innovators, entrepreneurs, and business leaders in the school system itself. When I said under the Guyana Development Bank, we'll create a special window of opportunity for students to come together, because we want you to learn to work together as citizens. We want you to learn to build companies together. It's not only the idea and innovation. So that's one model. The second model is creating high-value students, giving you opportunity to participate in leadership program. And that is why we want, and it's being implemented in every school, I hope your school, half day on Fridays, dedicated to physical education, to team building, to networking, to building relationship, to learning from each other. That's important. That's an important part of growing up. That's an important part of knowing who you are, of knowing each other, of knowing where your friends are from, of learning about your country. Then we want also citizens, future citizens, to have a certain value set. There is where we're going to bring in the churches, civil society, and other organizations to help to build a rounded student coming out of school. So you know what values you're building yourself on, what are the leadership qualities that will make you a stronger person, and also giving you a level of responsibility. If you look at the developed world, most students, first-year college students, high school students leaving school, they have to go into summer jobs or summer projects. And that is to let you understand the dignity of labor. So you may come from a very wealthy family, but you go and you work as a cashier, or you go and work as a waiter or a waitress. We look sometimes negatively at this. But there is great value in this. And when you speak about creating this mindset, we want this culture to be infused in our children too. When I wrote CXC, I took a travel bag with Winter Fresh, Big Red, and Juicy Fruit and started my own business, fetching it down Regent Street. People ask me as president, how can you operate in a room with leaders and then be able to serve people? It is where you come from. Where I came from is what I was exposed to. What you're exposed to and the exposure we infuse in you help to strengthen you as individuals, help to build you as individuals. And these are some of the things that we have to now bring into the system in building what I would say a holistic model citizen. Was I helpful? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Amber Kissoon, and I'm a student of St. Rose's High. My question to you is, compared to 5 years ago, how has the educational system in Guyana improved, and what are some milestones yet to be achieved?
Well, I would say there has been massive improvement in the education system, and this has been acknowledged regionally. However, we are still very concerned in the areas of mathematics and English, and we have to work on improving these two core subjects. There's an entire plan that is being rolled out, which includes the Guyana Digital School. We also have to do a lot more work on streaming the mindset of our children to what the economy needs and requires. Find ways in which we can incentivize and make more motivating students going into science, students going into engineering. So the education system is input and output. When you put something into a system, it has to be designed to meet a particular output. And the output of the education system, ideally, should match the needs and requirements of the economy. If we look at the education system now, it does not necessarily reflect the structure of the future economy, the needs of the future economy. So we have to start streamlining that. Not just education, but education that is structured and geared towards what the future of Guyana needs. And that is where a lot of the challenge would be. How do we have, and we have to build a national human resource information system and a manpower planning model. That is why we changed the Ministry of Labor to Labor and Manpower, because we have to do a lot of projecting as to what the manpower requirement would be for Guyana in every different sector. For example, the orange economy. If the orange economy gets going and you have the film industry coming here, you need makeup artists of a different caliber and skill set that will require a certain level of certification. So we have to be able to bring who we have now and help them to get to that level of certification. Colombia went through this. That's one of the biggest aspects of developing the film industry. So a major part of this education ecosystem is to manage the input and the output as it relates to what Guyana would need. And that is where the challenge, we'll have to address that challenge.
A pleasant good afternoon, Mr. President. Earlier you have stated that you wanted to improve the agriculture sector. So this brings to my question, but I want to touch a bit on the institution area. So what support is provided to schools to manage pest infestation that may affect students' health and learning, particularly in hinterland and Amerindian communities?
Well, first of all, we have to agree that we live in an area of the world that has certain advantages and disadvantages. We're in the city here, but I wouldn't be surprised if through these plans there is a spider, or if we go out there in the canal. Growing up, I used to go into the trenches and feel for fish. And every now and then you will feel something else than fish. In our own homes, I look forward to my small son running to me at some point in the night. Daddy, the lizard, hug me, hug me. That's a good opportunity to get to hug him. Some countries you have snow. Regardless of what we do, we have to fight termites, whether it's wood ants So we have systems to help to mitigate against these things. But we have to agree it's part of the natural environment. You agree with me? Some people go to the hinterland to get the opportunity to see a jaguar or to see a giant anteater. But we know, while it's prevalent there, it can also present a risk to the safety of people living in the village. So we must first, as young people, appreciate the environment that we are operating in. Because if we don't appreciate the environment, then we will not be able to have a good understanding of the challenges in that environment. In the budget, you will see under maintenance, we have resources set aside for fumigation, cleaning, furniture, equipment. For matter of fact, in the last 5 years, we started to transfer grants directly to the schools to deal with some of these challenges. But sometimes the system is not as efficient as we want it to be. And that is why we are working on this technology backbone to help us make the system efficient. But I want you to appreciate that even with all the fumigation, even with all of the pesticide, you're not guaranteed 100% foolproof. That's because of our environment. I studied in India. And in our classroom, the monkeys will give us a visit every now and then. When I first landed in India, it was a shock. Millions of people at the stoplight. So in life, you have to learn to appreciate your environment, because you will be placed in an environment that has cultural shocks and shifts. If you came out of the hinterland, I'm sure certain things that you met out here were culturally shocking to you, and you had to adjust. Am I not right? Similarly, when someone go into the interior. And that is what makes us a beautiful country. So, yes, the investments are there in the budget. Systems sometimes fail. But I want you not to ever lock yourself into a mode of perfection that disallow you to appreciate the environment or the ecosystem in which we operate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those were indeed some excellent questions from the students. And as journalists, we decided to ask you some oddball questions as we want to continue to mix things up here. And I'll go first, Mr. President. I've known you for a very long time, when you were the Minister of Housing and the Minister of Tourism, even before that as well. And I've
I
always...
will remind you, Parisa,
Yes, Mr. President.
that you were one of the first persons who interviewed me at 21 years old. And I'll tell you exactly what and where was the interview. We had just launched, well, not just, we just started the experimental National Drainage and Irrigation, the SIP project, Community Drainage Improvement Program. Remember that program? Where we employed persons from the community. And it was a first program. And we had an interview at Cane Grove. So I can tell you, long before I even became a member of parliament, we have been engaging.
Indeed, we have. And I remember that one of our encounters as the
Yeah, that was an event.
You did apprehend him, I must say.
Yes.
Mr. President, I've always known you to be very energetic, a go-getter, action man, and you entered your presidency.
I think. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, thank you. You've entered your presidency with the same energy, the same vigor, but it is even more amplified to the point where your ministers couldn't keep up. And now you've entered your second term with even more energy, and you have made it a mandate that you will go even harder. One of the questions that a lot of people have on their minds is, where do you get that energy from? What keeps you going? We see you late in the night, and at 4 in the morning, you're at the fishing wharf again, going at it.
I guess one of the important things in life is that you have to love what you do, first of all. And you have to be driven. It does not come without challenges. You know, it's difficult to explain to your 6-year-old son why you're out of home most of the time, or why on Christmas Day he's seeing you until after 4. But it is a love for what you do, and I think I love people. I love people, I love serving people. But I encourage everybody to eat a lot of fruits, Guyanese fruits. It definitely helps in many ways. People ask sometimes, don't you even get the flu to stay home? But you get the flu. But you get the flu knowing that you don't let it take control of you. So I think for every single person, being driven, loving what you do, are the primary ingredients to energize yourself every day. If you don't love what you do, you would not be motivated to wake up to doing it. So you can't get into public life for any other purpose. You would not succeed. You may have temporary success, what you may term temporary success, but to have the longevity, to be there constantly, consistently, doing the same thing over and over, listening to people's problems over and over, without letting it affect your own mental stability, and understanding your role. And it's also understanding the type of leadership. And I believe strongly in a service orientation to leadership. And that, I think, gives great joy. And seeing people, hearing people come to you and say, just simple things like Main Street. This was amazing. My family had a great time. Oh, I wish if we had this in my country. Energize you to take it a step higher. Everybody's already asking, what would next year be like? How do you top this? You have a plan.
Mr. President, I thought for a second you were going to tell us about 4 cups of coffee and a whole different
Well,
formula.
that's the norm. That's normal behavior. Lots of that, Coke and coffee.
Okay. Mr. President, you
Not
spoke...
good, though. It's not good behavior. Not good behavior. The fruits, the Guyanese fruits, good for you. Eat a lot of mangoes, pineapples. You know barhar? Anybody here ever had barhar? Look at these children. None of them had barhar. You never had barhar?
No, Mr. President.
What? You know what is kokrit?
No, Mr. President.
You ever had it? I am shocked. We have to launch a program of Guyanese fruits. Get Guyanese fruits in these children taste buds.
Yes, Mr. President. You spoke a lot about leadership and the importance, and even the question by the student about the opportunities for leadership in the future. But I want to know if you can share with them as well, is there any book that has impacted you in the way you see leadership and the type of leader that you want to be? A book that is a must-read for any aspiring leader?
There are so many books that I've read. But first of all, I think you have to have certain basic qualities. and you have to have a personal drive. No book can really tell you how to be a leader or allow you to be a leader. It's a book of your own life. And your book of your own life start very early. That is why exposure for the young people is so important. You know, we came up in a different era. We're a 10-ounce Coke. Any of you ever had a 10-ounce Coke? You know what's a 10-ounce Coke? You know the small Coke bottle? That used to satisfy an entire volleyball team. Picture a 10-ounce Coke satisfying an entire volleyball team. Or a 10-ounce Coke satisfying a cricket team. You can't picture that. I look at the startled faces here. But that by itself is a test. We learn so much from that simple act of sharing a 10-ounce Coke, because you had to take a sip and know when to stop so the other one could enjoy the same level. It's how each of us derive the same level of satisfaction, and each of us sacrifice to give each other the same level of satisfaction from the same 10-ounce Coke. Lots of lessons to be learned from that. Coming up in an environment where when you cook a chicken for chicken curry, all the children in the neighborhood will participate in that meal. Whether it means everyone enjoying 1 piece of chicken and 2 pieces of potato. And I can tell you that 1 piece and 2 pieces of potato had greater satisfaction, greater utility then than 5 pieces would have today. Today, many children leave school and go home to their tablet. We left school and go home to your friends playing a game together, sharing stories, talking to each other. Communication skills is important for any leader. Communication still cannot be developed with you guys texting each other in the same environment, and then you have a short thing from every, like somebody, the vice president was telling me the other day, someone told him the word sus. So I said, sus, we used that word long ago. It means you sus me, which means you understand me. He said, no, it means suspense. Suspect, right? Oh, this thing suspect. Suspect. In our turn, sus. You get me? You understand me? You sus me? But look at the simple act of communication, which is the greatest skill for any leader. We are losing it because you're not talking to each other. You're texting each other. Am I not right? So you're limiting your confidence in speaking. So sometimes you can text each other what you want to say with great clarity. But if I ask you to communicate it, you don't have that great clarity in communicating it. So there are certain things in the environment itself that are learned behavior that are important for leadership. So I can tell you, reading all of Shakespeare book allow you to communicate, allow you to understand the finer art of language. You want to write a nice poem or a nice letter later on to the one you love. We can't afford to lose those skills. And remember always, ChatGPT and AI does not give you what you're thinking. And if we allow these devices to overtake our own ability to do our own analysis, our own thinking, our own processing, then our own processor up here will become lazy, ineffective, and you have to guard against this. The other thing is responsibility. Sometimes as parents, we believe that we're doing our children a great favor by reducing burden of responsibility upon them. Growing up, all of us know you had chores. You had certain things that you had to do on Sundays. We have to get back to allowing our children. I think someone asked that question about leadership, about having them being responsible. Being accountable for things that you have. When you break something in a home, something coming behind that, if you can't explain why you broke it. So, leadership in the future, in this environment, is going to be very difficult. There will be a lot of aid to management. A lot of aid that will help you to be a good manager. But if we allow the personal traits of leadership to be eroded, you know, I read the book, The Art of the Deal, recently. And it's an amazing understanding of a global leader, approach to business. So reading is critical in helping you to develop, understand different examples, understand different circumstances that influence leadership, but there are certain things that we have to develop on our own that I'm afraid if we don't allow it to be developed, we're going to lose a lot of those qualities.
Still on the lighter side, Mr. President, what has been an ordinary moment for you or that you've experienced this year, apart from your contagious dancing moves, that reminded you that you're still a Guyanese man at heart?
That's an interesting one. There were so many remarkable moments, you know, especially given the fact that we were in a campaign. You know, going out there and hearing people, there's a group of APNU supporters who I met on the campaign trail. And we started gaffing. And they said, Mr. President, you know our politics, but we love you. You're a true patriot. That was a moment that stood out. That regardless of the political season and recognize difference in support, that they were willing to recognize that. Also, every time I'm with our men and women in uniform, every single time I'm with them, I mean, the cameras and the population don't get to see every moment. Moments in the fields, seeing these men and women with their backpack, the weight. And I said to the Chief of Defense Staff that if they are fetching the weight, we have to fetch the weight too. Going through the mountains and to some of the locations, it's so humbling and refreshing and re-energizing that you can't help but recognizing the fact that you are a true Guyanese, and this is the ultimate example of who we are as Guyanese. So those are moments, I think, that really strike out and stand out as great reminders and grounding, I would say, grounding for who we are.
Mr. President, um, as we're ushering in the new year, what is your advice to the Guyanese public? Also, do you have any New Year's resolution that you'd like to share with us?
Uh, More work, harder work. I want to spend a lot of time, more time in the communities. But I want us to, in this new year, all pledge to developing a positive mindset. I think there is enough opportunity ahead of us that requires us to take a positive approach to life, a positive approach to our country, to our environment, and to everything we do in our homes, in our communities. Let's resolve to be positive. Let us also, in this positivity, try to be the best we can be, whether in your families, in your neighborhood, and work towards creating a healthier, more stable society. One of my resolutions would be to walk every morning, or as far as possible, along Main Street and to work with the gardeners in tending to the plants. And I want all of us to do that. I want every Guyanese family to wake up every morning and do something physical. Walk around your yard, water your plant, walk down, we're building all of these community facilities, go to the community facility. It's the best way to start your day. Wellness and mental preparedness is important in this fast-paced society we'll be engaged in next year.
Mr. President, I've heard you say publicly that knowing Spanish was a goal of yours because you recognize there are certain challenges associated with being a leader in South America, not being exactly proficient in Spanish. So I just wanted to know, how are your Spanish lessons going?
But that's why I want you guys to do it. Learn a foreign language at your age. As you get older, it becomes far more difficult, but I'm not giving up. It's very difficult for me. Please, guys, I'm asking all of Guyana, learn a foreign language. I made a huge mistake by dropping foreign language in secondary school. I've reduced my competitiveness. I now understand how important it is as a leader. Do not make the same mistake I made. All of you, do not. It was a horrible mistake I made, dropping foreign language. Please do not make this mistake. It was one thing I want to ask you. I see some of your faces saying, oops. You still have time to pick it up. You're all very young. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President. We've all seen such a lighter side of you this afternoon. But before we wrap things up, we have 5 final questions from the students. So we'll start with the young man. Please remember to state your name and the school you represent.
And that's another problem you have to fix in the country, mics.
Yes, sir. They're always very unreliable. And good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Seth Hugh of the Bishop's High School. And as we globalize and as technology becomes more prevalent in our day-to-day lives, we find that younger and younger members of our family find themselves on social media. And this is having adverse effects such as attention spans. And following in the footsteps of Australia, you've previously stated that you'd like to implement some restrictions on social media. But before we could do that, you need to consult and meet with the Guyanese people. When are Can you tell us when these consultations are going to happen, just the general layouts, and how focused is the government on restricting social media?
Well, I don't want to use the word restricting social media, but I want the consultation to tell us what we should do. So in January, we're going to start the consultation. We're already putting together the team. I have a number of case studies that I'm reading right now. The Australian model, looking at what Germany want to do, the EU, the UK, because it's important for us to arrest this problem. Social media is not the problem. It's the abuse of social media. Right now, the United Nations has launched what they call an attack on the pandemic of misinformation and disinformation. Over the holidays, I've heard from literally hundreds of families about their children being on social media all night, all day, waking up until 3 in the day, 2 in the day, 1 in the day. As a parent, we have that challenge. Managing screen time. One parent told me that they took away the device at midnight and they put it in their room. And at 2, they woke up seeing the children crawling in the room like ninjas coming for the device. And you know this if you have siblings that are smaller. Every single day in the homes. And interestingly, when I was in Silicon Valley, many of the tech majors, they told me their children below a certain age, they don't give them devices or they limit their time. So all of us recognize this as a real problem. But you cannot over-police a system. That is why the consultations are important. We want families, young people, the churches to be involved in helping us to come up with the best possible solution on this matter.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Abigail Augustus, and I'm representing the New Central High School. My question is, what are some changes we can expect to see to help women empowerment under the next 5 years of your leadership?
Well, if you look at this audience here today, you will see. First of all, I don't want to minimize the work of women in this country. We are a trailblazer. When you have more than 70% of our graduates from university being women, it tells you the story. Today, women in this country are taking and creating massive opportunities in leadership, in business, in technology, in sports. So the investments that we have made and continue to make to empower women, most of the persons on the Pathway program, the part-time program, are women who never had the opportunity to earn, who today are independent because of that program, who today are more confident because of that program, who today, because of that program, are upgrading themselves and upskilling themselves. So it is doing more of that. 35% of all new farms, setting policies like that, being owned by women. Today, more women are taking housing loans than men. More women are being allocated house lots than men. And I would say that women are being far more responsible than men in our society today, and that they are bearing far more of the burden of development, the burden of family, than men in our society today. And I would go as far as to say that our men are lagging behind, and we are disappointing the women of our country. And we have to address this. Women love confident men, strong men who are living positive life. And I think that we need to take a leaf out of the women books in Guyana and convert their drive, their passion, their enthusiasm in our own lives so that we can reignite that flame that is definitely missing in our society. And on the contrary to your question, we have to take deliberate steps. We have to take deliberate steps to win back the men in our society. And I look forward to the women leadership in helping us to do this.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Sebastian Khan from St. Joseph High School. And my question to you is, what are some concrete plans in the healthcare system and the regional hospitals in the hinterland, more especially in the rural and urban difference in these two regions?
Well, basically, it is to create an even level of service across every single region. That is why we are building the regional hospitals. All the regional hospitals are equipped with the same level of lab, the same level of equipment, the same level of service, so that there's an evenness in the distribution of service. Why this is important? Today, we have patients from Brazil going to Latam. 5 years ago, it was a reverse. 5 years ago, we had 1,000 times more the Medivac out of the hinterland than we have today. We have less today because we have been able to invest in the facilities, invest in the human resources, invest in the labs, connect through telemedicine, our health centers, health clinics, our hospitals. So it is the evenness of investment. It is the creation of a minimum level of service that must be available to all our citizens, regardless of where they live.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Alex Garway from St. Rose High School. St. Rose High School. My question to you is, how do you manage your personal family life and the affairs of the country?
I must admit, first of all, because I believe that you have to admit your weakness, that I've not done a good enough job when it comes to managing time at the family level, because my son reminded me of that. And one of the stark reminder was he saw me one Sunday going out in the fields. And he said to me, "Daddy, I never want to be a president." And I said to him, "Why? Why would you say that?" And he said to me, "You always have time for the people and are out with the people, and you don't spend enough time with me." So I can be a leader and tell you it's all rosy, but I have to tell you the truth. So whilst I've been able to give as much time as possible to the people, I believe I have not done a good enough job at managing the holistic allocation of time, and that is something I have to work on.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Rihanna James from St. Stanislaus College. Now, recently I understand that you launched the Guyana Digital School, which incorporates the use of artificial intelligence and more so electronic labs for STEM students. Now, that brings me to my question as what measures is the government implementing so as to provide hands-on experience, like my colleague said earlier, more so as their leadership and, because like you said earlier, if we don't have a mindset at doing what we love, then there's no way that that we will wake up every morning and just be so energized. So in terms of providing hands-on experiences like workshops and so forth, what reassurance can you give to the students like myself? Because, you know, it'd be fun to have like a shadow as a doctor or, you know, practicing or so forth, but those opportunities are not currently presented in the way that they are with, let's say, the youth parliament. I mean, like, let's say you want to be a lawyer, you have more opportunity to join youth parliament than you do in STEM workshops and so forth. So I want to reinforce once again, what measures are you implementing in the future? And, you know, what reassurance can you give to students that, okay, these measures will be accessible to all, regardless of where you are or you know, who you are?
Beautiful question. And I remember my days at Saints, when we used to go to Saints Farm. And we were able to practically do every single thing that was taught to us theoretically. One of the good things about the digital school, it allows you to perfect an experiment, because you don't have someone telling you you're wasting this chemical or you're wasting that chemical. You can do it over and over. But that does not replace, as you rightfully say, the opportunity to be in the environment itself. So if you look at medicine today, the robots would not replace the doctors, because doctors still have to be in the environment. But today, you can perform a surgery from UK in Guyana through robotics, through AI, at higher degrees of accuracy. But you still cannot do it without a human element being there. So it's finding the balance. That is why we have to create a society of innovators, a society of innovation. And we have to, in every single community or cluster of schools, have robotics classes, have things that are science-oriented, labs, opportunity to share experiences, to build models, have seminars for innovation and innovators. And that is why we wanted every student to register to do coding. Remember we started that program? Because coding is such an important part of science and innovation and developing. So your question is on target. We have to ensure that we build out these facilities that will stimulate innovative thinking, give practical examples, and allow you to work in an environment that you want to adopt as your career in the future, right? That was what work studies were about. But we have to go beyond that now. And we have to create work attachments, similar to what I spoke about earlier. Giving you an opportunity to develop your confidence, to develop your work ethics and everything. All right? So you're correct. That is something that we have to ensure we build on and create the investments to give you the practical, realistic opportunity to work in such an environment. Great.
President, this has been a very enlightening and edifying discussion. On behalf of the students and the journalists, we want to thank you again and wish you, your family, and the government a successful 2026.
Thank you very much, and I wish all of you and your families a great new year, one that is filled with good health, success, love, and a positive mindset. Positive mindset. You know, on the issue of time, I have a saying that how do you define time? And my definition for time is the distance between birth and death. And what you're able to achieve between that distance tells how well you utilize time. So all of us have a different timeline. We don't know when is our end date. Some people may have 20 years, some 50 years, some 70 years. But sometimes the one with 20 years would have achieved far more than the one with 70 years because they utilize time in the most efficient manner. So my definition for time is the distance between birth and death. What you get done between that time line dictate how well you utilize time. All right? So all the best to all of you. God bless all of you. And thank you for being here. We took some time out of your holidays. Thank you very much. All right? Let's take a